Operation Paperclip was when, after World War II, the United States gathered up a ton of scientists from Nazi Germany, brought them over to America, and even Wernher von Braun. They had Wernher von Braun run NASA. He was a Nazi, like 100% Nazi.
Good friends with Hitler type Nazi.
Yes.
Today, we will dive into NASA's biggest controversies and mysteries. A few of them are bound to leave your mouth wide open. So don't miss out. Let's get started. Number 1. White mice and Apollo 11. You've all heard about the big moon landing and the glory it brought to humankind. Let's see what the animal world witnessed at the time. This is Michael Collins, the third important name in the Apollo 11 mission. He was the one tasked to bring back the duo that first stepped on the moon. The man was inside the command module at the time. But something even more interesting happened right after the mission ended. When the trio landed on Earth, they were put into quarantine to see if they had any moon diseases on them. To check that, they had to live with a massive colony of mice inside the quarantine.
Like and subscribe right now, and you'll have amazing luck for the rest of the week.
The idea was that if the mice lived, it was all cool. But if the mice died, that meant trouble. So even before humans, animals got to see the first astronauts that went to the moon up close. How's that for a good flex? Number 2. The 4 feet being. Meet Rick Doty, the man who worked inside Area 51 for decades. But none of the secrets came close to what he had to say in this interview. He claims that the Roswell incident changed everything. The agents found a tiny energy device that day that was definitely part of some alien technology. Its power was so strange that it could light up a small bulb or a whole power plant within seconds. But that's not all that he had to say. He claims that there was a security camera that recorded an alien walking into the facility. It was a popular topic among the workers.
Didn't have any thumbs, just fingers, very long fingers, no thumbs. It looked to me like there were suction devices on his fingers.
The alien was 4 feet tall and looked exactly like the gray ET that people talk about so fondly. What do you make of this story? Number 3. Methane on Mars. Mars gave us a lot of important discoveries, but one of those mysteries was the presence of methane on the red planet. The discovery left the whole scientific community on the edge of their seats.
Groups of scientists have observed possible methane in the atmosphere, so that would mean that if we actually measure it, that it must be produced somewhere, right now, somewhere on Mars. This can't be left over from, millions of years ago, because it would all be oxidized.
Now there are only 2 explanations for this discovery. Either there are biological organisms living in water underground, or there is life similar to what you find on Earth, where organisms don't need oxygen to live and survive. Could it mean that there was life on Mars? But here is the problem. Methane doesn't last long on Mars's surface. It should last for hundreds of years, but it seems to vanish quite quickly, not even lasting a few months. This has raised a lot of questions about the discovery. How's methane forming here on Mars? Could it be a sign of life? Number 4. Operation Paperclip. This secret about NASA and the government will make you question everything. Apparently, when World War II ended, it was pretty evident that the Germans had a knack for designing better advanced weapons. The United States government wanted the upper hand, so they teamed up with NASA to do a sneaky little thing.
Operation Paperclip was when, after World War II, the United States gathered up a ton of scientists from Nazi Germany, brought them over to America, and even Wernher von Braun. They had Wernher von Braun run NASA. He was a Nazi.
They went to Germany, handpicked the best scientists from the enemy lot, and asked them to come to the US to work. About 1,600 scientists found a home in the US. Now, it seems like an innocent offer, but that's only until you find out that these guys were in the thick of the action during World War II. They were basically Nazis from the Nazi Germany, yet the US gave them the free hand to work at NASA, developing rockets and working closely in the operation. One guy even designed the rocket that first landed on the moon. Although it seems like a win for NASA and co., this move got a lot of hate from the public. Was there a need to go to the same people who took so many innocent lives? Shouldn't they have been punished before being given a fancy job? What do you make of this? Number 5. The strange encounter. Believe it or not, the first moon landing had a lot of wild mysteries. One of the most famous ones is the crew seeing a strange light following them when they get near the moon. It was moving a few miles away from them, but they had no doubt that it was following them around as they orbited the moon. The strange light then came to a halt and then vanished into thin air. Since then, these objects came to be known as UFOs. Nobody knew how to explain them to the public, and NASA never tried to stop the fire from fueling the controversy. But here's what is interesting. It wasn't the only thing they saw there. Apparently, the moon had a lot of weird structures spread all over its surface, something as ambiguous as a tiny bridge, and things that looked like the cooling tower of a nuclear power plant. The astronauts never tried to assume what they looked like, but the presence of these strange structures baffled them. Was the moon inhabited at some time in space, or was it all just mere speculations? Well, things remain as unclear as they were on day one. Number 6. The Roswell Incident. You've heard about the Roswell Incident from a number of people, but have you heard it from an embalmer's point of view? Glenn Dennis got a strange call while he was working on some military contact. The officers on the other end asked him about the smallest coffin that could be hermetically sealed. If this was weird, the next question was just plain bizarre. He also asked if it was possible to decompose bodies exposed to various elements and preserve them. If so, how? Dennis listed everything he knew, but when he offered to help, he was denied that request. But he was asked to tend to an airman who needed medical attention. Dennis got there and had the most bizarre talk with a nurse. She told him to leave the facility as soon as he could. He also saw massive debris with symbols like Egyptian hieroglyphs in an ambulance. His interest was only piqued, so he met with the nurse in private. What she told him was terrifying. She gave him a drawing of what she saw at the crash site. 3 strange beings about 3 to 4 feet tall with lengthy arms and non-human traits. Next thing you know, the woman vanishes after a few days. Only 2 weeks later, he found that she passed away. Intriguing, isn't it? Number 7. The deep sea exploration. You've always seen NASA in space, but did you know there's a tiny part of the company that takes dives into the deep sea? Why? That's the interesting part. The Aquarius Reef Base is a popular research lab created under the ocean by NASA.
But unlike a submarine, the pressure inside Aquarius is the same as the pressure outside. So even though there's an open hatch at the bottom of the habitat, water doesn't go in.
Astronauts who are supposed to be in space are often found here practicing their drills. Apparently, space-like simulations are conducted to help the astronauts work on survival strategies. But all that is happening only on the surface. It is what's going on inside the lab that's a bit strange. NASA claims that there is an underwater laboratory that is doing research on marine life, but popular belief says that they are doing something more. People think that they are testing out deep-sea technology to explore ancient creatures and even do research on advanced military tech. But could it be that they found something even more bizarre, like the ruins of ancient cities? That may be a speculation, but the sea holds a lot of secrets. Nothing is impossible. What do you think? Number 8. Apollo 20. Wasn't the Apollo 17 the last one? That's the wild part. Although the Apollo missions ended with Apollo 17, there have been many claims of a 20th Apollo mission to the moon. William Rutledge was the guy who made these claims. He stated that NASA made a secret mission to Mars, and he was one of the astronauts in that rocket, along with 2 others in the crew. The third astronaut was Alexei Leonov, a Soviet cosmonaut. He has denied the existence of this mission, but if it was a secret, would he admit it to the public? Rutledge claimed that the mission was to dig out ancient alien artifacts that were supposedly on the moon. He described that these artifacts had weird writings and symbols. If you remember, there were these striking images of what looked like a pyramid on the moon. Could it be that this man is right about his claims? But there's more. He stated that there was an alien body found on the moon too. He called it the Mona Lisa, and it has apparent humanoid features, but a lot of people called it fake, a good shot at video editing. What do you think? Number 9. The end of Apollo 17. Apollo 17 was the last mission to the moon. But why? Most people believe that it wasn't the last mission. NASA continued with the Apollo missions even after the widely publicized, but in secret. There was leaked footage from the Apollo 20th mission that led to speculations that maybe NASA forgot to put the curtains on this one. But if that is true, what did they intend to find? Another part of the group thinks that aliens put the moon off the limits. There has been a lot of footage to prove this theory. Astronauts claiming that they have seen lights and strange formations in space suggests that there might be watchers near the moon. So, did they warn humans to keep the moon out of their so-called research? I guess we can only wonder. Number 10. The Christian astronaut. This guy doesn't talk about aliens, but he talks of a creator. This is Dr. Danny Faulkner, a former astronaut from NASA. He didn't say much about extraterrestrial beings, but he had something else to share with the public. He claims that the universe is young, about 6 to 10,000 years old, much like the depiction of Earth in the Bible. He even argues that the Big Bang is not accurate.
This idea that the Big Bang model is universally accepted is not true. There are many people out there, well-known people, very famous physics and astronomy people, that have real problems with the Big Bang.
But here's where it gets interesting. Faulkner talks of a creator. He claims that this universe is so precise and mathematically complex that it must have the hand of the creator in it. The fact that he has been to space only makes his arguments more compelling. Did the way the space works make his beliefs stronger? We can only guess. Number 11. Interstellar travel. We have all thought about the day when the dream of interstellar will become a reality. But what if I tell you if it has already happened? Apparently, in the late 1950s and the early 1960s, there was an ambitious project that was proposed, Project Orion. It aimed to create a rocket ship that could travel at unimaginable speed, helping people go to Saturn, or even farther. The project even promised interstellar travel and going beyond our solar system. But how would that work? The rocket would use the shock waves that come out of a nuclear explosion. Yep, the scientists wanted to detonate tiny nuclear bombs behind a spacecraft and ultimately launch the spacecraft. A shock absorber would prevent the rocket from exploding into tiny bits. But that's what got the world rumbling with shock. How could NASA think of turning space into a nuclear war zone? In 1963, the idea was shut down. There was a lot of political and public backlash about the idea. But do you think it would have been possible? Number 12, the Nazi man in NASA. Nazis were part of NASA after World War II happened, but there was one figure whose name popped up countless times in history, Wernher von Braun. There were a lot of secrets surrounding this guy, and for the right reason. For starters, he designed many rockets for NASA, although he was once a Nazi. That brought along a lot of hate on the guy for not being punished for his crimes. But the secrets were revealed much later. He said something himself that led people to think he was part of the UFO projects at NASA. His statement went on something like this: "We find ourselves on the brink of a new era of space exploration, one that will lead to the discovery of life beyond Earth." Did he slip away and tell one of the most confidential projects from NASA? That's not all. He also designed Saturn V and Redstone, which were part of the military program from the start. So, was NASA involved in military programs? Number 13, the Dawn mission. One of NASA's most important missions was the Dawn mission, which abruptly ended in 2018. But it wasn't the mission that was suspicious, but the things found through this mission. The rocket that was designed to carry out this mission was powered by ion propulsion. It was one of its kind because it could enter and leave the orbits multiple times. However, its main idea was to study two of the largest objects in the asteroid belt, Vesta and Ceres.
The asteroid belt is really fascinating because it's kind of like the boneyard of material that's left over from forming all these planets.
Boy, did they find a lot of strange things. One thing that stood out was the bright spots on Ceres. They were found to be salt formations, and that meant only one thing. There was a chance that there was liquid water on there somewhere, hinting at the possibility of life. On the other hand, Vesta had something strange hiding in its belt too, a massive crater at the South Pole. That raised a lot of questions. What happened out here to leave such a huge impact? Were there many small craters in the same spot? If so, what caused it? The mission ended, but these questions still haunt the scientific community. Number 14, the secret material. The James Webb Telescope was one of NASA's biggest accomplishments, but how did it come to be? Have you ever wondered? The design of this telescope was a giant leap into space technology. Suddenly, NASA had access to this unique design that could peer into the oldest part of space, the time when stars and galaxies had just started to form.
Webb needed to be far away from Earth, and it needed to be very cold if it's going to work in the infrared.
This was stunning, because there was no other observatory that could reach such lengths and do it strikingly well. Plus, it wasn't just a random design, but a well-thought invention whose origin remains a mystery even today. The question is, how did they get this marvelous idea that helped NASA peek into ancient time? Did NASA have a bit of help? If so, from who? What are your guesses? Number 15, Blob on International Space Station. Meet the Blob, a living cell that has broken the internet and baffled scientists, all because of its unique traits. The Physerum polycephalum is an organism with no brain or nervous system. But despite that, this organism is pretty intelligent. It has been known to solve mazes, create patterns, and even find its way to the closest food source.
When you cut the blob in two, each part has a piece of its genetic material that can function autonomously.
Seeing its fancy traits, NASA decided to put the organism into space. Here's when the scientists found themselves even more shocked than before. The organism worked the same as it did on Earth, even without the presence of gravity. This opened up a lot of paths for NASA and space exploration. They could send other organisms into space, see their behavior, and learn about the potential of biological organisms in space. Can you imagine the kinds of things we could do? Number 16, the Apollo 1 fire. Before the success of the lunar missions, there was one that caught itself in the middle of a lot of controversy. Apollo 1 was one of the test missions to help get man to the moon and then safely back to Earth. However, the mission failed due to an epic fire that took the lives of 3 astronauts. But things took a drastic turn on 2070 for January 1967. The 3 astronauts were seated in a command module at the headquarters where they were exposed to a simulation test. The idea was to prepare them for the launch and its condition. But a problem that went unnoticed was the atmosphere inside the command module, 100% oxygen. The test mission started and the module erupted into fire. Neither was it controlled in time, nor were the astronauts rescued. With the deaths came a lot of criticism from the public. An investigation was launched, and the program was close to shutting.
After all of the work we had done, we had to end up speculating that it probably occurred from a short circuit near Gus's left foot.
Can you imagine if NASA would have closed this program? Yes, the Apollo 11 mission would have never happened. Luckily, NASA found out that the problem was the 100% oxygen in the command module. That was replaced with nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere in the next missions. Number 17, ISS and UFOs. The ISS live feed is for getting a little sneak peek into space, but people have seen a lot more than just the ISS. There have been many times in the history of the International Space Station's live feed that people have seen strange lights in formation. Once, in 2011, the camera showed several lights moving in a close formation. People started speculating that it was a UFO. Surprisingly, NASA never commented on that encounter either, only fueling the gossip. A small group of people believe that it is space debris floating around or an optical illusion, but the incident has happened so many times that people cannot seem to ignore it. That's why the majority of people believe that it is either a UFO formation or a strange alien object moving around. What do you think? Number 18, lost footage. NASA is quite secretive. There's no doubt about that. But what about the things that are lost in the video feed? There have been many instances in the ISS feed where there was missing footage. Now, it is unclear whether NASA has a hand behind it or if there were actual technical issues with the feed. But here's what has been going on. The astronauts might be doing a repair or a maintenance check, and the feed would randomly cut off. Similarly, strange occurrences of weird lights and supposed bizarre objects were often blurred out in the footage. Then, randomly, the video would cut off, leaving only seconds of live feed behind. With these many instances, you can't help but wonder if NASA is doing it on purpose. What do you think? Technical issues or intentional thinking? Number 19, the Unexpected Bonfire. Astronauts have shared their fair share of bizarre experience, but this one is just out of this world. Apollo 8 was a mission to send astronauts into deep space for the first time. These people were going to orbit the moon and make history, but that achievement was overshadowed by one strange discovery. When the astronauts started orbiting the moon, the headquarters lost radio contact with the rocket. A while later, the signal was restored, but the communication between the astronauts that happened during that time shocked everyone around. The duo was talking about some kind of smoke coming out of the moon. One called it a bonfire, while the other called it a campfire. Soon enough, images rolled out and there was no mistaking the sight. It was indeed smoke. Everyone was baffled. There was no oxygen on the moon. How was smoke forming out here? One theory was that it was gas pockets that were often released from the moon's surface. But this discovery was made all the way on the other side of the moon. Astronauts who have been to the moon more than 50 times claim that they have never spotted something like this before. What do you think it could be? Number 20, Admiral Byrd's expedition. This guy is famous for all the right reasons in history, but there is a part about his expeditions that's strangely mysterious. He went on a few expeditions in Antarctica for the first time. That's when he described the strangest things he saw in the frozen continent. One thing that got a lot of attention were the many sightings of objects speeding away and flying saucers hovering over the frozen land. Admiral Byrd wasn't the only one who saw these objects in the sky. There were many other people from that expedition who reported a similar experience. That's not all. There was one thing that beat every other sighting in Antarctica. Although there was never any footage, Admiral Byrd described something bizarre at the scene. He claimed that there were a few caves in Antarctica that led to ancient civilizations hiding underneath the Earth's surface. There was his diary that detailed his experience when he met with these beings from the hidden civilization. The surprising thing is that he never came forward with these secrets and jotted them all down in his notebook. Do you think it is true? Number 21, Missing Apollo 11 footage. The Apollo 11 mission was a big success, but did you know there are a few missing pieces from that expedition? When the astronauts pulled off this historic move in history, the feed was captured and uploaded for the public. But it wasn't the whole footage. A lot of important moments were missing from the tape that got a lot of criticism. Plus, it was very blurred out. But that's explainable since the original format was different. The question is, what did the astronauts see on the moon that had to be erased? Or is it just mere speculation? Number 22, the spy satellite. NASA and spy satellites. It does seem too far-fetched of a theory, but is it? Landsat was a series of satellites launched into space publicly.
The instruments aboard the satellite are able to view a swath 185 kilometers wide and collect images along that swath as the satellite proceeds through its orbit.
It all started in 1972 and was aimed to help the scientific community with research purposes. By capturing images in various spectral bands, scientists could see what the naked eye couldn't explore. But here's the problem. This design that was initially meant for civilian purposes turned out to have a military meaning hidden too. It could monitor troops and navigate missile sites without any intrusion from anyone. This led a lot of people to think that maybe Landsat was used as a spy satellite. Is it true? I can't say that. But are they capable of it? Absolutely. That's all, folks. The insane secrets and mysteries coming straight from NASA. Some came directly from the astronaut. What do you think about all of this? Do you have any theory to crack open any of these mysteries? What do you have to say about the unique find? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, make sure you smash the like button and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for more of these videos. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.